there are a couple of words that bad teams should never discuss. I would say the worst of those words to me is the C-bomb culture. We have been here through some hell, specifically with the Houston Texans, and heard enough people talking about that word to never want to hear it again. Yesterday at his press conference, Rafael Stone was asked about the perception of the Rockets culture. So to be fair to Stone, he was asked this question, but Stone went on a tangent, and it drove me absolutely crazy when I saw the transcript and then actually watched it and listened to it.
There have been a couple of things. It hasn't been a lot. Secondly, a couple of the people are just out of their mind. And so, what I would say on players is players are entitled to their thoughts, and it's fine. And we've had a ton of people come through here over the last 3 years, and the vast majority of them have had amazing experiences.
Sean, can we pause for a second?
You're around.
The vast majority of them have had amazing experiences. But we're not talking about veteran basketball players. We're not. We're talking about young basketball players who, as Sean pointed out yesterday, have no other perspective on what actually is a functioning basketball team. John Wall, meanwhile, felt a little bit differently. Russell Westbrook clearly felt a little bit differently. James Harden, after a while, clearly felt differently. And maybe that's not the reason that these three guys left, the culture. But perceptions are perceptions for a reason. There is usually a little bit of truth here. And I feel in this response, Stone immediately getting defensive, that to me is worthy of criticism. Because everyone knows, of course, you don't have a culture. This is a young basketball team, right? They're not winning either. So don't talk about a culture. But Stone continues in this answer at his press conference yesterday, which announced that Stephen Silas was not returning as Houston Rockets head coach. Here's the rest of what Stone had to say.
And I think if you're around, you talk to the guys in this locker room, we have a really good culture. We have not managed to turn that culture into wins at this point in time. But culture, I would put our team up there with anybody in the NBA. We work really hard. People are very supportive of each other. They get along very well. They spend a ton of time together off the court. A lot of that's the function of their youth, which is also one of the reasons why we've struggled to win. Like, it's all interrelated. But I am willing to fight with anyone who will say that our culture on this team this year, it was challenged. It's been, if not the best team I've ever been around, certainly one of the top 2 or 3.
One of the top 2 or 3 teams he's been around. Keep in mind, Rafael Stone's been involved with the Rockets in some way since 2005. So one of the best 2 or 3 teams you've been involved with? Are we talking about the 2 or 3 years since you've taken over as general manager of this team and stopped being the legal counsel for the Houston Rockets? Whenever someone feels the need to tell you that an organization has a good culture and then follows it up by saying there's no wins, also these guys don't have a lot of perspective, then he's full of it. Stone wasn't done, though, and you might think that this is the reason that I am coming after Stone on this day. But no, I don't actually care about media criticism. I just think that Stone's words here are hollow. If you feel the need to say that you have a good culture, you don't. It's an overused buzzword as it is. But when you sound like this, I'm sorry, I just think you're full of it. More Rafael Stone.
As it relates to the media people who've said it, I would say that some of them have been lazy. I think that there were a lot of things that were written and said about, and I was a part of these teams, so I don't want to walk away from it, but teams when I was not the GM, those teams were very successful. They did things in their own way. I think some people didn't like the way they did them. And so I think one of the things that's happened is that complaints about the way that those people did things are being conflated with us now, even though the only commonality is it's the Houston Rockets. The players, coaches, front office has changed hugely. That's my perception. So that's my answer to that question. Like the real answer is I don't think there's validity to that. Our culture is we work really hard and we support one another. And And I think this team has done that very well. So, and that is largely a function of Stephen and what he's done on that, because that's a culture in particular is a very coach-driven thing, and I want to give Stephen his credit. I think he did a very good job on that front.
So he did a good job creating a culture, but by the way, we're not bringing him back for this coming season. Also, the media criticism of our culture is lazy when there are actual players going on record talking about what a mess it was here. So those two things, just insufferable to hear from a general manager of a basketball team. I get it. They're in the midst of a rebuild, and I'm not expecting much. No one should be expecting anything, to be perfectly honest. But you're calling this lazy. I mean, the reality is what it is. It's your results. It's your record. And when I think about the Houston Rockets, I think about a lack of accountability that existed with James Harden, a lack of accountability with young players now and players specifically on defense outside of maybe Alperen Şengün. That's what they are right now. They are a team where accountability has not been a factor in what seems like over a decade since James Harden came to the organization. And Stone brings up past teams there. Okay, but the commonality remains. A guy like Christian Wood or Kevin Porter Jr. can stop playing in the middle of the game, leave the arena, and they're just still here the rest of the year, still here the year afterwards. I get it. They're young, but if you bring them back and act like it's no big deal, are people actually getting better on that front as far as feeling like they're going to be held accountable?